Welcome to the Spring Showcase. This is Michael Washington. As always, my co-host Daniel Villalpando is with me here as we jump into what is it? Week heading into week four this past weekend. This week
That's
four this past
correct.
weekend, right? It was the fourth
Yes,
weekend.
sir.
Yeah, the fourth weekend of LFA Mexican football. Daniel, first of all, how are you today, and how are things down there, my man?
Doing fantastic. Very bipolar weather. I am wearing a hoodie in Texas. My classroom is
Nice.
extremely cold, but as always, predicted weather was gonna be 80 degrees. It's now 92. So that is usually how Texas works. But other than that, sir, I am doing fantastic. How about yourself?
Well, we got blasted with snow on Saturday because
Wow.
speaking about bipolar weather, and it's close to 58 today. So I mean, yeah, makes
Lucky.
total sense. I am
Absolutely.
not in a hoodie, as you can tell. I am in a long sleeve, but I'm also indoors where you are in your vehicle. So,
Yes, absolutely.
what's hoodie weather down there? What is it, like 50 degrees down there? And you're like, oh, I'm so cold.
For regular population, I would say for sub 220 pounders, I would say that is true. But I'm an offensive lineman, so this is more for style actually. So this is more of a style fit.
Nice, nice.
But yeah, you know,
All right, fair. I wear hoodies for style too, so that's fair. I
got
got it. Sam,
you
what's
gotta
up?
look the
Shout out to
part.
you, my man. Thank you for joining us. Yeah, exactly. You got to look the part as an offensive lineman. You know how it is.
Hmm.
Sam, what's up with you, my man? Shout out to you. Thank you again for letting us here on Shady Sports Network allow us to have this awesome spring showcase and this awesome partnership that we got going on here with me and Daniel. That's awesome. We
Yes.
appreciate it. Go hit that like, comment, subscribe over there, Shady Sports Network on YouTube as well. Eventually, I am going to get better lighting. I think that is going to happen at some point in time. I don't know what is going on with this. I still look so dark, and like I got my light on behind me. I don't know. Maybe I need to turn my brightness up. I don't know. Anyways, I am here. If you guys can see me, I promise. Woo! No, I don't know what's going on with that. It's crazy. Anyways, alrighty. First of all, first and foremost, as we head to week four, there was three games, as we were discussing before we came on air. The Heifers and the Raptors, uh, you know, um, really ha- uh, they didn't play because of what was it, extrasensual threats? Is that what it was
Yeah,
down
that
there,
that's what a
or
lot of the yeah, that's what a lot of the talk is right now. It's it's very bipolar over there. The beautiful thing about Mexico is they are very enthusiastic about their sports. They really love it. Every once in a while, certain political things flare up, and it gets a little scary. And the league did the best thing they could, and they kept both those teams safe. They pretty much put them together, and they just apparently we don't know if it's canceled or postponed. I know we were speaking about that, but hopefully it's postponed. Um, because every game counts in a 10-game season.
yeah, for sure. And that's one of the things that. Oh, look at that light! Hey, that's awesome. Uh, well, I have a curtain behind me, but I open it right now with the way that the sun is setting. It's directly behind me, so it's blaring. It's just straight white light. You wouldn't have seen me if I didn't do it, but I got light now.
Yeah, there you
Yeah.
go.
So the the Hefes and the Raptors. Back to that for a moment. We haven't heard anything. Don't know if it's postponed or canceled. But the curious thing about this, Daniel, and one of the things that's strange. Or not strange about this, but one of the things that the league is going to have to figure out is it's such a unique situation, right? And the league takes the whole weekend off of Easter weekend. There's no games this upcoming weekend,
Yeah,
and with only 9 teams, and you play 4 games a weekend, there's not really another opportunity for these guys to really make this game up unless it's a short week, right? Like there's no other option. Is it possible that we just end up seeing this as a canceled game and we have 2 teams that only play 9? I mean, I feel like that's a little bit of a disadvantage for the Hefes and the Raptors, and with the Raptors being a little bit better than the Hefes, they're in the thick of a potential playoff push, for that last
yeah.
spot. Um, so that game could be really important.
Yeah, and I mean it's tough for pretty much the whole league. Like you said it really well as well. The fact that they could possibly only need to play 9 games, for one, rest, for two, standings. But internally as the Raptors, and we were talking about this last episode, for the Raptors, I mean, you could have
Mm.
possibly gotten the ball rolling. You could have possibly been getting everything going. And for the Heifers, they probably really needed this opportunity to just gel more together. But I mean, you would think they have to play it. And yes, the next week is open. I think that's going to be their only opportunity, even if it's on a Friday night or Saturday, to give the teams, their time away for a little bit. But I really hope they do play it, and who knows, maybe we might get bonus football.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't heard anything now. It's Wednesday. Normally, we have this episode at 8, later on at night. So maybe we'll hear something later tonight. But at this moment in time, right now, where we moved it up a little bit, we haven't heard anything yet. And with it being
Yeah.
Wednesday, it kind of feels like that this is kind of you know pushing it a little bit, or we're like in a time crunch area of whether or not this game is going to get played this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, hopefully these two they're able to figure it out, and this game can get you know rolling here down the road. All right, let's jump into the other three games that did happen this weekend, though. I'm just gonna give a quick rundown of how they went. The Caludillos beat the Mexicas 34-13. The Dinos lost to the Galos Negros 6-21, and Reyes lost to Fundadores 23-35. I just read those in order left to right. Um, let's start with this Caludillos and Mexicas game, because this was the game that you and I basically called game of the week last week,
Yeah,
and we
absolutely.
both picked the Mexicas to win this game, and we
Yes,
both
we
picked the
did.
Mexicas to win this game.
Yes, sir.
And it was not that close.
No,
It
not
was
at
close in the
all.
first quarter, and that was about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, what were your thoughts on this? Because I thought the Mexicas were going to come out and play very well, but the Caladios, man, just that team is legit. They're just well rounded.
Yeah. And two things stood out to me very, very vastly. The Caudillos are extremely, extremely well coached, and we talked about this in the first episode that we had together. They play the ball so well offensively and defensively, and they did
Mm.
exactly that. They took away a lot of the aspects that has really been helping the Mexicas. And number two, it's even when the Caudillos look bad per se, they're still in
Yeah,
the game. It was 7-6, right? And we were like, okay, man, this is a pretty good game, but you can see how well they were still playing. And obviously, the second half explosion that they had was just wild to see. But that just
yeah,
shows how scary that team is. So, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, and you go through and you take a look at just the way that this game, when it was the look at the just looking at the box score alone, it was obviously a second half um output by the Cadillos. They only held
Oh, yeah.
they held the Mexicas, they held the Mexicas to 13 points all game. It was 7 in one half, 6 in the other. I mean, this team was a team that was running over people left and right, and
Yeah.
they were, and at halftime this game was like, what was it, 7-6 at the half?
Seven or
I
six.
believe it
Yeah.
was 7-6 at the half. So I
Yeah.
mean,
Very
it's
physical
not
first
like,
half.
yeah, it was a very physical, and it looked like that the Mexicas were going to follow that same route, but the adjustments in the second half by the Caladios was impressive across the board, and there was nothing about this game that stood out as what the Mexicas could have done differently, right? I mean, they couldn't move the ball. Is basically all it
Yeah.
was. I mean, it wasn't like the offense was playing poorly. The defense on the Caladios was just playing really well.
Yeah, and that's really what it was. After that first half, it really felt like one team was sick and tired of having the game close, and the other team was pretty not I wouldn't want to say content, but very excited the fact that hey, we're slowing them down, we're using a lot of the clock, we're grinding it out the way we're supposed to. One team adjusted and they adjusted extremely well. The linebackers started filling the gaps. They really took away a lot of the cutback lanes. They really forced them to have to try to take those certain shots, and they're just coached extremely well. And you could see the frustration towards the third quarter, after those scores started happening, it was very evident that the Mexicas just weren't quick to adjust, and even after the third quarter, they just it just seemed like an avalanche for them.
Yeah, and we talked a little bit last week about Jeremy Johnson, the Kai Dios, quarterback, and his inconsistencies, his interceptions, his turnovers. It there wasn't a ton that really made a difference in this game. I think he had one interception. I think it was in the first
Yes.
half, and he it didn't really lead to anything. So these interceptions seem, or these turnovers seem to be putting the team in kind of like rough territory. But it's like the defense is just so good that they're not
Yeah.
hurting the team overall. I mean, this is a statement win, 34-13 against what was looking like the best team in football. I mean,
Yeah.
Kenyatt Allen, who Chris Matt shouted out to in the comments, like he was playing lights out for the first 3 weeks, and this team scored 13 points against the Cadillos. I mean, it's just you know
Yeah.
two
It
straight years
was.
undefeated, right?
Yeah, and that's what it's looking like right now. I mean, it's impressive as a quarterback. We talked about how well it helps. Kenyatta Allen, the run game, right? How well it's been helping him with the Mexicas. But for Jeremy Johnson on the flip side, when your defense is just
Mm.
stuffing everybody and just closing everything out, they're like relief pitchers every single inning, though. Like they're just dominating and so fresh. So the big thing is, I mean, who cares? You throw a pick here, you interception here. I mean, winning cures all, right? If they were 0-3, 0-4, be a whole different conversation with all those turnovers. But right now, when you have a good defense, I mean, how confident must he be in himself and his arm? Where even if he does make a mistake, I mean, his defense is gonna back him up pretty strongly.
That's a great point too, and I'm wondering if the coaching staff is kind of allowing him to take these risks a little bit more
Yeah,
because of how great that
yeah,
defense is, right? Go
correct.
out there and make that high risk, high reward, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Citizen Arcane, thank you for chiming in. He has a question about any chance of friendlies between the UFL and LFA teams next year. Um, I don't know what your thoughts are on this. For me, with the LFA starting sooner than the UFL, I don't see it necessarily happening. I would like to see maybe some scrimmages between the two teams beforehand, or a possibility if they could find a way to make it work, because the base of the UFL and everything, their headquarters is all in Texas, so it's not like it's that far off. They got three
Yeah.
teams down there. They can run through Arlington. Um, I would like to see maybe a little bit of a preseason thing between the two, but I just don't know in the land of football where a lot of teams just they like to stick to their league and focus on their league if we're going to see that. But I mean, I for one would be for it. I don't know about you and your thoughts on that.
I'm all for more football as long as possible. Since if they would be scrimmages, unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to see a lot of the public eye wouldn't be able to see them. Preseason games would probably be awesome. The big thing is though, I mean, right? You nailed it, which is the timing of both leagues. They would both have. I would love for both the leagues to get together, start at the same time. Really bounce players off each other if possible. Give different players opportunities. But when you're paying these players and some of them are getting paid really, really well, the last thing you want is any opportunity to get hurt in
Mm.
non-league play. But I think, I mean, the world of football would be amazing if we can combine all three, right? Which is Canada, the United States, and Mexico in football. Unfortunately, the rules set in Canada are a little bit different, but
Yeah.
it's just I would love it personally. I would freak out for it. I'm in Texas, so I would love if they had a preseason game. I think I'll tell you what, the funding's there for the LFA to bring a team over here. It's not too far, and flights aren't that expensive.
Yeah, and Sam, and you brought up a good point at the end of it. And Sam mentioned that he'd like to see the LFA be like a developmental league for the UFL, kind of like the IFL, and just kind of build those pathways. Personally, I don't know if I want to see the LFA necessarily be a developmental for the UFL in the sense of what the terminology is. I would like to see the LFA have a working partnership with them, though,
Yeah,
like you mentioned, because I think that the LFA has something special for the country of Mexico, And I think that this could be a league that could easily develop into becoming a premier league, especially for that country, and
Correct.
and and also be on a worldwide scale where like you might start seeing some of European players that maybe not be able to make it in the ULF, the ELF, or that have been playing in the GFL2, maybe look at LFA as an option, an actual legit option, or even Americans coming down to the LFA and actually making it like a league that they want to try to get into. Like similar to how Canada is. Like if you can't make the
Yeah.
UFL or the NFL, they go to Canada or whatever it may be. I think the LFA can do that as well. So I'd like to see more of a working, partnership. But Sam just corrected himself in the chat. So exactly, I agree with you. That is perfectly fine. I just, as far as like a true developmental, I just don't like that. I personally don't like that word used for a
For
league for
leagues, yeah.
another league, um, because the CFL would be a little bit harder because, like you said, the rule set's a little bit different, and they're kind of stuck in their ways up there up north. They really really, you mention anything about American football, that's
Yeah.
that's the same down here, and you get torn apart. So the LFA though is something I've really enjoyed, and I think there's a lot of talent down there, and I think that they have something going good down there. So I think that if I did want to see anything, it would just be more of a partnership. That's what I would want to
Yeah.
see.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed.
Yeah, it's just for the correction standpoint for everybody out there. Sam said, "Let's." That's fair, exactly what I meant. But it would just be a long term. The UFL develop into an IPP type programs for their teams, which I mean, it would all depend on the funding across the board. If the LFA had enough funding, then it could be a true partnership. I just don't want to see another league merge. I'm done with merging. Don't No
Yeah.
merges.
Yeah.
Like let's just
Yeah.
you know,
Agree with
but
that one as well.
no
Absolutely.
more merges. We lost 8 teams, and it worked great for Canada, but it sucks for a lot of players out of jobs, and we've seen some really good players that were all XFL or all USFL be cut because of the
Yeah, they got to
condensed
merge.
smaller
That's
roster.
right.
Yeah. So um, the second game of the slate was the Dinos against the Galos Negros, and this game went exactly how we thought it would.
Yeah.
There was really not really a surprise here. The Galos Negros won 21-6. A little sluggish to start off the game, but the Dinos just really haven't found their footing, and I don't know if they need to take this bye week and maybe look at a quarterback change. We mentioned briefly last week, but um, it I don't know what your thoughts are on this game. Where you're coming from with that game, but I mean, it went pretty much how we were expecting it to go.
Uh, just about as if we scripted any type of football game, that was probably as genuine as we could have made it. Um, just not really finishing, not really being able to do enough. Seeing the Dinos and we called it right. They were going to get their field goals. It wasn't going to be anything. I mean, maybe it
Hmm.
was going to be a shutout, but they did just that. And it feels exactly like you said. Something has to change. Something, and the biggest part is there's two people that will always catch most flack. It's going to be your OC or your quarterback, and just watching their line play with the Dinos, they're small, man, and it's tough.
They are.
And you see it, and it was. There's two players that I mean, I really got to look into their line. Um, there's two players that I know have returned from last year, and they struggled last year as well. It was a tough one, man, but it's just when you have your Mexican nationals and you're trying to get them in there and you're trying to force them in there, stuff has to change, man. And I know the import players, the American import offensive linemen aren't the sexiest imports, but you never know how great it could help your team. And right now, it just feels like something needs to change, whether it's going to be the QB or just the style of offense. But just too many drives where things look different. And shout out to the guys Negros for getting another win, man, improving on the year that from last year. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
You definitely
And
called that one.
yeah, well, I mean, and right now for the Galos Negros, it's a successful season, right? Like
Yeah,
you
yeah,
got your one win last year, you got an improvement this year. There's nothing else to look back on and be like, we this is a successful season. Obviously, I think there could be more wins for this team down the road as they continue to
yep,
mesh and gel. Uh,
absolutely.
as far as the Dinos are concerned, I want to go back to them real quick because this offense is clearly a 3-and-out machine because
Exactly.
Eric De La Rosa only has 57 attempts on the year passing,
Hmm.
and their leading rusher, who is also a homegrown in Julio Cesar Elizondo, only has 39 rushes on the year. Well, this was week 4, so it like
4 games. Yeah.
4 games, and it's not pretty. So, and I don't want to put all of the blame on De La Rosa by any means, because again, it's 57 attempts tells me that this offense there's something not working with this offense, whether it's play calling or whatever it may be. But he only has 57 percentage completions. Like, the next closest guy on attempts is Matthew Vitelli, and he missed last week because of an injury. He has 66
Yeah.
attempts already on the year. Like, so there's definitely something going on with this Dinos team, but he's been sacked 8 times. You drop back 57 times, you've been sacked 8 of them. Like, it's not pretty, because let's see, the Anthony Perkins has dropped back 93 times and he's been sacked 16. So between the Hefes and the Dinos, it seems like this offensive line is they're just not protecting their quarterback.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is, and it's showing, right? I mean, they trust. Of course, you're going to trust your American import, your quarterback. You're going to trust him a lot. He's missing a game, and by the way, they played 3 games, so sorry about that. That was on me,
Oh yeah,
but you still see. I mean, back to back 6 point games, offense really slowing down. Both quarterbacks have kind of showed that it may not be them. It may be just lack of trust, but I'm not sure, man. Maybe the OC stuck in their way, but I mean, the thing is, when your O line and I really got to dive into the height and weight of that offensive line, but like visually, you can see
mm,
it's just it's tough, man. It's tough sledding for that O line, and right now, it really feels like these defenses are just honestly just flying by. So, um, it's pretty, it's pretty scary to see, but something's got to happen because they don't have a good schedule after this bye week, but they're gonna need it.
yeah.
So
It,
we'll see.
it's pretty glaring.
Yeah,
The size difference is pretty glaring. It's a great point by you. Hey, it was one of the first things that I noticed watching this game against the Galos Negros, because last year I felt the Galos Negros was the smallest team on the front
definitely,
line,
absolutely.
last year, and then we're now at this point where we're looking at the Dinos going, like, did you get smaller? Like, what happened? Like, because you were not very big across the board there.
Yeah,
It's showing up in the stats. It's showing up in games. Like, they have to figure something out. They have to find a way to use the speed. Maybe it's try to get to the edges more, because the offensive line can do it. It's just you have to adjust to what you have. You can't
yeah,
force it to work. I say it all the time. So I don't know. Great for the Gallos Negros, though. Aaron Ellis looks like he's starting to kind of finally get into a little bit of a rhythm with this offense. They still have 2 of the top wide receivers in the league, so that is at least meshing. The defense is still struggling a little bit. I know the Dinos only scored 6 points, but um, we already talked about their offensive struggles. But uh, if they can find footing with this defense, it's not outside the realm of the possibility to see Gallos Negros kind of be hovering around the playoff talk. I don't know if they're good enough to get in, but they can hover around there to get there, which is something that you know, which is something that again, it has to count as a win. It has to count as a successful season for you to improve like that, from one year to the next.
yeah. And I mean, if a lot of these other teams are still going to continue to struggle to find their footing, we're in week 4, and the Gallos Negros are continuing to improve. I mean, who's to say that they're not going to be one of those competitors for the playoff spot? 5-5, 6-4, right? I mean, 6-4 would be tremendous for them, but four and
Yeah.
six, 5-5 looks very, very feasible right now. It's very attainable, and the defensive is exactly the spot that just, man, if they can get everything going, we see different games from them, but it's the fact that these guys are building, and you can tell that their chemistry is better, and you can tell that they're
Mm.
moving better. It's just again, it's that one dominating performance, right? Like they need that one thing that's just gonna pretty much just turn everything up for them, and it might be that in all honesty, and I hope it is. But this bye week seems to be coming at a perfect time.
Well, and I think that that's one of the things that this league, again, a league wide bye week for all the teams this week with Easter coming up on Sunday. It's great timing for a lot of these teams.
Yeah,
The one thing that I want to see more of, and I think that when you start seeing the more successful teams on the international level, it's the American imports that buy into the system that they're in, right? Like when the American
yeah,
imports are able to buy into that and truly be leaders on the field, I feel like these teams work out a lot better. And I feel like that Aaron Ellis is getting to that point where he's truly starting to get into his own and buying into a system that
yeah,
he may not have not felt necessarily felt comfortable in when he first got there, right? But it's slowly looking like it's getting there. The receivers look like they're bought into it. It's just the quarterback is obviously the centerpiece. We talk about it a lot, and it's always viewed as the most important position in football. Even though I'm an offensive lineman, I disagree with that. But you know, that's how I feel, though, right? I mean, it's got to be some sort of camaraderie there with the American imports coming in, correct?
yeah, and it feels like, I mean, we saw a lot of the. I'll tell you what, the Gallos Negros were very in the public eye last year, and
Mm.
you could just see it was just not, it wasn't gelling. Things weren't really going, and weren't flowing. And it unfortunately will start with the quarterback position. It just feels like Aaron Ellis is the guy for the team. He's the guy that these guys are buying into, or not only that, they're looking to lead them. And if he can get everything footed, and he can buy in, I think the ceilings, it's there, man. It's just raising up more and more. Obviously you're coming off a one win season, but it's a whole different team. It's a whole different mantra. So I'm glad they're starting to get everything going. I'm glad it's kind of everything's starting to come together and gel. And hopefully, obviously their next game against the Galgos, I think, is the perfect game for them to kind of springboard into, a different little atmosphere for them. So I really hope it is.
And a very winnable game as well. Uh,
Absolutely.
Very winnable game with that as well. Chris says, "Dude, I could totally be a position coach for one of these LFA teams right out of college." I mean, go get it if you think you can be, by all means.
You gotta learn some
Yeah,
Spanish.
I mean,
The
yeah, I mean,
Spanish.
I mean, if you think you can be, go get it, Chris. Go get it. Like, don't let us stop your dreams. Like by
Absolutely.
all means, go get it. What turned out to be the game of the week, which wasn't even really the game of the week. Let's be honest. I mean, none of these games were really well. I guess you could say the first half of the Cadillos and the Mexicas game, but if you're talking about overall competitiveness, I think that this game was probably um, the game of the weekend, but it wasn't really that close, even though the scoreboard looks like it was that close. It's one of those
Yeah.
misleading things. Reyes lost to the Fundadors 35-23. Um, Matthew Vitelli was hurt, which was again kind of a little bit of the story of his career. He's a little undersized at the quarterback position. He's like 5'10", 195 pounds. Like he's not a very big guy at all.
Yeah.
Hell, could sling it. He's just not. His size is an issue. But again, Raul Reyes. I mean, a homegrown national kid. Looks really good. I mean, he played really well. I know the Fundadors are just a really well-rounded team, but I mean, overall, I mean, I thought that Raul Reyes played fairly well.
Yeah. He's one of my favorite players, mainly because that kid has just energy through the roof, and the team. Yeah, and we talk about it a lot, right? And the Mexican nationals, and players that teams got to rally around. It's tough. It's very tough for that gelling process to happen. But if your quarterback is a Mexican national, and he's that kid's a little firecracker, man. He's flying all
Yeah,
over. He's a really really good fit for them. And it's just once they gets everything kind of flowing with them, that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, it's kind of the elephant in the room. Who's the Q? Who's going to be the number one guy? But that kid just plays with so much just energy and fire, And it's good seeing him. And we talked about this last episode, the way he's progressing in his technique and just the little things. I'm excited to see how well it goes, and I really hope they stick with one guy. Right? I'm not gonna say who, but I think I'm kind of hinting on it, so I hope they do, man.
Well, I mean, and it was really the second quarter that kind of got away from Reyes here. I mean, it was 7-7 coming out of the first quarter,
Yeah,
and the Fundadors put up 21 in the second. But Shelton Upler, I mean, what can we really say about him? Like, honestly, with the way Kenya Allen had a fairly rough game this week, it put Epler right in the forefront of being the MVP of the
yeah.
league so far through 4 weeks. Um, he arguably might be the best quarterback in this league. Like, you
It's
can make a
very
case
much
for it.
looking like it. Yeah,
Another 35-point output. I mean, the Fundadors, 47, 28, 35 through the first, their first three games in the
oh
in
yeah,
the year. Like, they're going to be tough. They were tough last year, and I know that this is exciting for you as a Fundadors fan, right?
yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, we'll
like
try to hide that. We'll hide the smile a
I'm
lot,
trying to hide this.
but
We're trying to be as I'm trying to be as
I'm
unbiased as possible here, right?
guilty as charged. I apologize.
No doubt, no doubt. But no, I mean, it's just when you watch the Fundadors, it's literally like it's a well-oiled machine. Like we talked about it with the Cadillos
Yeah,
because the Cadillos they've been undefeated for 2 years, the champions coming out, but it looks like the Fundadors are coming. They're not messing around. Like it just doesn't
yeah,
feel like they're messing around this year.
yeah. And I would the only thing that always sticks out right so far is just the way they've finished games. They kind of let the Reyes kind of hang in there a little bit. They had that huge blowout win to start off, and you can kind of see it. But I mean, they got the Dinos next, and the Raptors after that. Those two games after a bye week really kind of set them up to have this explosion leading into, of course, that big game that everyone's going to wait for against the Caudillos. But I, I just think how Epler's playing and how efficient he is. I really hope he does get that look as like, man, this guy is MVP caliber. Yes, there's another undefeated team, and yes, they look fantastic. But when you talk about MVP, like the most valuable player to their team, he's buying for the Fundidores. He's by far the MVP right now.
On the flip side to Reyes, Reyes had a very tough front schedule. They're
Yeah,
through 4 weeks now they're 1-3. Not the spot that we thought Reyes would be in, right? They come out of the bye week and face the Cadillos. So
yep,
it's like it doesn't get easier for them, but their last three games on the schedule after that are Galgos, Jefes, and Dinos.
yeah,
So it is very possible that this team can close out on a hot streak and squeak into the playoffs and use those last 3 weeks to I mean, barring some sort of like catastrophic turnaround, of some of the top teams and some of the greatest improvements ever in the second half of the season for some of these bottom teams. Reyes may still make a little noise here down the stretch and end up being the fourth or fifth team, you know, at the end of the year. Because I would say right now, if I had to do a power rankings, I would probably put, the Cadillos at one. I would probably put Fundadores at two, and I would do Mexicas at three right now, just because the Mexicas didn't look that great against Cadillos, and until
yeah,
right and until the Fundadores play the Cadillos, it's hard to really gauge it. So right now, I would have to
definitely.
have those three. But after that, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Well, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are probably up for grabs.
Yeah,
To be
yeah,
honest with you.
and you definitely know that they want that week one game back, right? I mean, I don't know if they went into that Gallos Negros game week one, the opener. You don't know how they kind of felt about it, but it happens all the time. In the highest level of football to the lowest level, you think a team is the same as last year. They could be 2-2 right now, and it could be all different. But that 1-3 is really glaring. It's really tough. You said it right. I mean, they don't come off this bye week against any cupcake team.
Mm.
So, but hopefully that when they get into that game, it it's going to be one or two things. It's either you're gonna know who you are as a team, you're gonna fight as much as you can, you're going for the upset, buy into the underdog role, or you're gonna allow a team to get in there, beat you up, and it's gonna demoralize you. And it's gonna be tough to see what that coaching staff can do. But if they go in there, give the Cadillos a good fight and give them a nice, an actual competitive game, pull an upset, or at least they make it keep it competitive. I think exactly what you said. I mean, I think they're going to have a great shot at finishing this at least, 4-5 or 4-6 to finish off the year.
Yeah, and it's just more or less just looking at the way that the nature of this league has been. You're starting to see the separation. We're heading
Yeah,
into we're through 4 weeks already. Some teams have only played 3 games, others have played 4, so their bye week's a little bit later. But I mean, this league wide bye week this weekend is definitely going to probably come at a right time for a lot of people. And Reyes, I think, is going to be one of those teams. It will give Raul Reyes more of a chance under center and 2 weeks to work with that offense a little bit more, especially if Vitelli's out for any length of time. And if they do go back to Vitelli, it gives Vitelli a 2 week window because he came on late. Like he wasn't there through the camp because
yeah, yeah,
he didn't start week 1. So this gives him even more time to work with those guys. So I think it's coming at the right time for Reyes, and maybe who knows? Maybe they put an end to this Cadillos, streak.
yeah. I know. I'm gonna definitely bet the ladder on that one, but it's they got to find their guy, man. It's another one of these teams that they got to find their guy, and I think once you do, things can right the ship. It's very hard to play in a two quarterback system, man. I mean, we hear it a lot of times in the highest level of football, and
Mm.
I think if they can find their guy, it's going to be a whole different ballgame.
Yeah, for sure. So, as we have said a couple times throughout the broadcast, for you guys that have listened to us, there is no games this weekend. It is Easter weekend down there in Mexico. They love it down there. There is a game that was postponed in the Jefes and the Raptors. We have not heard word yet about when that game was going to be played. We feel like the bye week this week would be good, but it's Wednesday. We still haven't heard anything at this point in time. It's 6:14 Eastern time here, which is 5:14 down where Daniel is. So maybe we'll get an announcement here sometime in the near future. Right now, at this moment in time, we have heard nothing. So it's still very possible that we will have only 9 games for some of these teams here in the near future. With that being said, we're going to preview the following week. We won't be back next week because there's really no reason to do a show without giving any kind of updates of that sort, unless there's some kind of breaking news. We probably won't be back next weekend or next Wednesday. We'll take a week off with the LFA schedule. But the week after that, we come out to some Thursday night football. That's
Amen.
right. April 4th, the Dinos and the Fundadores. I don't think there's really much for a preview for this game. I hate to say it. I hate to say it about any competitive professional sport, but this is looking like it might not be close. Like except for when the game starts at 0-0.
Yeah, it's a Thursday night game, right? I mean, a lot of times, a lot of crazy things can happen. A lot of wild things can happen in the world of sports, but I do see, Monterrey, the Fundidores, really pulling that one off. I really do see it as another game that they're going to kind of flex their muscles and they're definitely number 2 in my power rankings as well. And I think it's just going to be another tough sledding for the Dinos.
Yeah, for sure. There's a doubleheader on April 6th. That's a Saturday. The Raptors and the Mexicas. The Raptors are going to get essentially uh,
Yeah,
what two
possibly 2 bye
weeks?
weeks.
Two
Yeah.
weeks. It looks like 2 bye weeks recently. So they're going to be fully prepared for this Mexicas team. But do you think the Raptors are going to have enough in the tank, even coming off the two week bye, to make to make a difference here against the Mexicas?
I think if they replicate what the Caudillos tried to do in the second half, it's very tough. The Caudillos obviously have all these award winners coming back, but I think that game plan, that blueprint was really there. I'm an Eagles fan. When the Niners played the Eagles, they
Mm.
really put a blueprint on a certain player, on a certain quarterback, right? And I think if teams swallow their pride and try to do that, it's a copycat league. Football is a copycat league.
Oh
The
yeah.
game plan is there. It's just can the Jimmies and the Joes execute the X's and O's? and I think they can't. And I think the Mexicas are gonna get back to their points, their average. So I think they're gonna get 30 plus in this game as well.
Yeah, I think the Mexicans are going to probably return to but this Raptors defense is a little under the radar.
It
Um,
definitely is.
I don't think it will necessarily be a blowout from the start of it, but I think the Mexicans will get back to that grinding, going to wear you down, physical style of play. And as long as they don't get out physicaled like they did against the Caudillos, it should be a win for the Mexicans for sure.
Agreed.
Closing that night is the Galos Negros against the Galcos. Now, this is a very winnable game for the Galos Negros to go for
Hmm.
3 wins here. They have a favorable schedule down the stretch. I don't know if you looked ahead or not, but they play the Raptors after that game. Then they play Caladios, which is going to be a tough one, and then they play
Hmm.
the Jefes to close out the year.
Yeah.
So if this team continues to mesh, they could go 3-1 down the stretch. I mean, it's very possible that this team can go 3-1 down the stretch. So, um, yeah, I mean, by the way, doing my math, it looks like there's only 9 weeks this year. There's not 10.
Yeah. 9 weeks. Yes.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that's because the Reds had their issues from last year.
Correct.
Um, so I mean, it's possible that we see 2 teams with 8 games, but that's beside the point. But still, that's still a possibility. They go down 3-1 down the stretch there. Can they get it done against Galcos?
Yeah, I definitely have them pulling that one off. I think they're hitting a certain stride that it's very difficult for pro teams to get. Man, the chemistry factor is huge, but and we alluded to it, right? The bye week that they have, and I know in Mexico it's called Semana Santa, right? Holy Week.
Mm,
So it's a whole week over there. I'm assuming that's why we're not going to get the other games, but
yeah,
I think it's that Semana Santa is coming in a perfect time for them, and I really think this. And you said it best. They have, to me, best mascot you can get, right? The Gallos Negros. I'm rooting for them 100% as well. But I just, from a non-biased standpoint, I think they're hitting their stride really, really well. I think Aaron Ellis is the guy for them, and I really think they're going to rally behind him, and I think they're going to force some interceptions over there, man, and I think that defense is going to hold off.
I think one of the biggest things that they're going to have to be careful with is to make sure that they don't fall into this trap game because Galcos is coming off two. It'll be 2 weeks of
Yeah,
buys for them, and Trayvon Boykin needed it. I mean, let's be honest. This offense was out of sync. Boykin was out of sync with this offense. Aaron Ellis is starting to get in sync with this offense, so it's definitely making a difference for Galos Negros. I have Galos Negros winning this, but this could be a trap game. And that is partially biased on my end too because I am a Galos Negros fan. So I do want them to go 3-1 down the 4-1 down the stretch really in these last 5 games. Let's just be honest.
yeah,
Coming out. So, um, or yeah, 4-1 coming out.
for them. Yep.
Yeah, of down the stretch here. And then they close out on April 7th, which is a Sunday. There's no game on my birthday. My birthday's Friday. It falls right in between there. It's going to be Reyes and the Caudillos. It's a Sunday game at 12 o'clock noon Eastern time, or it might be 12 noon there, actually. So it might be
Correct.
1 o'clock my time. So uh, this game is going to be interesting to see. This is the game that we were a little bit talking about a minute ago with Reyes. Only 1 win on the season so far. It's not what we expected from this team. We expected this team to be in a little bit better shape. Caladios still, I mean, they're the Kings until they're knocked off, correct? Like
Yeah,
essentially, that's how it goes.
yeah. It's just really, I think if Reyes is the quarterback for his team, and my thing is, it's how uncomfortable can you make the Carrillos, right? And right now, the 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 technique and how much they play that on the defensive side is just abnormally like consistent.
Mm.
Usually, like they're not giving up big plays, man. They're not giving up big broken tackles. They rally to the ball. I think at the end of the day, I'm an offensive lineman, and I hate to say it, but defense wins championships. And right now, that defensive side of the ball is looking spectacular. And I think it's going to be another steamroll of a game. I really hope it's not, right, for the sake of what the league is. But I just think the Guardios right now are just firing on all cylinders.
The only thing I can hope for is that whichever quarterback they go with, while it's Raul Reyes or if Vitali's back from injury, that they get the reps, that they run the reps, and that we end up going through the process of seeing this team kind of start meshing here down the stretch, because I think the league is better when Reyes is better. But at the same time, like I'm a Gallos Negros fan, I don't want to see them near the top, because I just want my Negros into the playoffs. So
Amen.
for sure. All right, and then what we're going to do now is I'm going to close out the show. Daniel, I want you to do your segment that we've discussed. I want you to do that. While we're go ahead and close it out, we'll close right out with you, and you can lead us right in. I just want to give a quick shout out to Sam, obviously, for the Shady Sports Network, for obviously giving us a platform again. Spring Showcase is happening Wednesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 Central, down there in Texas for you guys as well, for in Mexico. And until we come back next week, we will not. Until we come back in 2 weeks, next week we will not have a show. That is going to be it for me. Daniel, you can go ahead and take us home, my man.
I appreciate it. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. Esta semana es Semana Santa, ¿verdad? Para nosotros, para todos en el Estado de México y para también muchos mexicanos aquí en Estados Unidos. Gracias a todos por todo su apoyo. Siempre es algo que nosotros queremos agradecer, ¿verdad? Es el deporte de fútbol americano. Gracias por todo eso. Más cosa es que agarra su equipo, ¿verdad? Agarra su equipo. Si son, para mí son los fundidores, para Michael va a ser los Gallos Negros, pero agarra su equipo, agarran su apoyo para ellos, grab your team, grab your fan base, become a big fan of someone, y dale chance a este deporte especial, porque todos los mexicanos que están jugando ahí en el LFA, all the Hispanics and Mexicans that are playing for the LFA, they love this. This is something that is a dream come true for them. De la universidad hasta ahorita, from the university to now, they're growing something. They want to continue to grow it. So, dale chance a nosotros, dale chance a este lado. Y para mí, los fundidores son los campeones, ¿verdad? For me, the fundidores are going to be the champs. Para Michael va a ser los Gallos Negros, pero dale chance a un equipo, dale con todo su corazón, give it all your heart. And again, thank you for everything you guys do, and have a great Semana Santa. Gracias por todo. Y dale gracias a Dios para todo el Semana Santa. Gracias. So, appreciate it, guys.